Very much. I'd like to begin by thanking our media partners for taking this very last minute media advisory for us to host a press conference for the people of Guam and for making their live streaming channels available to their listening audience. Dios maasi for your rushing to accommodate this press conference. I'd also like to begin by thanking as well my team in the district side as well as out here in DC. It is 12:30 in the morning and we're coming to you live in order to address areas of concern that have greatly gripped our community as a result of the recent announcement by the Director of the Department of Labor, Mr. De La Sola, regarding the I'm having some backfeed here. Regarding the eligibility of people with reduced hours for the pandemic unemployment assistance that was federally authorized in the omnibus bill that was passed in December. I want to begin first by making it very clear that prior to Mr. De La Sola's announcement, we were not contacted and we were not consulted as to whether or not such an announcement should be made. I would like to emphasize that before we make such announcements of with such considerable impact, we first circle our bases and try and get our messaging together in order to prevent the community from panicking and going into a tailspin like they are now. My phone's been blowing up with people trying to reach us, messages being sent, and we wanted to make sure we addressed it holistically. First of all, the most important point to make very clear is that we have not in the Congress received any such guidance that has been announced in the media recently from the Guam Department of Labor. I repeat, there is no guidance that we have received that is consistent with the information that has been recently made public, that those who are on reduced hours will not qualify for the pandemic unemployment assistance that they were qualifying for previously. I do have in front of me the latest guidance in writing from the US Department of Labor, and this latest guidance in writing is dated as of December 30th. No additional guidance in writing has been provided. I also want to emphasize very clearly that the law that created the initial pandemic unemployment assistance and the criteria for eligibility has not changed. In the omnibus, when we passed it in December, it extended timelines. It created clarification on how to resolve disputes, but it did not in any fashion change the eligibility requirements. I did, within the last half hour, have a very brief conversation with Director De La Sola, and he wasn't able to speak at length with me because he was going into other hearings that he had previously scheduled, but he did inform me that the information he received was via telephone call that was in a conference with other jurisdictions that were on a similar call. But again, we have not received any such information in our offices. The conversation that I had with Director De La Sola also indicated that he was not able to ask any questions on the call to get any clarity in direct relation to whether or not these items are going to be coming out in writing, when this is going to be published, or even the finality of the decision per se. So I wanted to begin first by urging the community to not panic and to make the community very much aware that the law for pandemic unemployment assistance eligibility has not changed. In light of the recent announcement by the Director of the Department of Labor on Guam, we just got this news within the last hour as well. And my team is immediately reaching out to the various channels that we have in the House of Representatives, particularly the Committee on Ways and Means, to once again get clarity. I do want to emphasize as well that when the CARES Act was first passed earlier in 2020, There was an initial reaction at the local level that it did not apply to Guam, and that turned out to be incorrect. And I'm fairly confident that through our inquiries, we should be able to generate enough clarity to make sure that we clear this up, and also render the recent announcement to be incorrect as well. And for a variety of reasons. The first of which is that the pandemic unemployment assistance language in the law is not specific to Guam or territories. That needs to be very clear. We made sure to artfully write the language, or contribute to the writing of the language in a way where the pandemic unemployment assistance program would apply to all states and territories equally. And so the ineligibility that's being announced is going to impact the entire country. As per the communication of Director De La Sola earlier, he mentioned that other states and jurisdictions were voicing their concerns. Some of their concerns as well was that if PUA eligibility was to be reinterpreted in that fashion, it would also make many workers in the states ineligible for FPUC, the Federal Pandemic Unemployment Compensation, the additional $300. And the reason why that would be so is because in order to qualify for FPUC, you need to be receiving PUA. And so if there is a change in reduced hours workers being able to receive PUA, they would also likewise be unable to receive FPUC, and that would affect workers throughout the country. My staff informed me that when this news broke, they immediately began scouring major Department of Labor agencies throughout the states to see if similar announcements were being made. We have not seen any so far. And so to my knowledge, our jurisdiction is the only one right now going public with this kind of information. And I think that the reason why that may be so is because it's important for us to first circle back and clarify whether or not this interpretation is actually accurate. I do have on the line our Deputy Chief of Staff, Ms. Jennifer Wynn, and our Legislative Director, Ms. Sahara Defensor. And I would like to take an opportunity to turn over this press conference to our Legislative Director so that she can quickly go over the only guidance that we have in writing and clarify that the announcement that has been made is not in this existing guidance, and to also give a little explanation on equal protection and the fact that the equal protection concerns would apply if those who are receiving pandemic unemployment assistance prior to this announcement were receiving it and all of a sudden are not able to, or new applicants are not able to, without any structural changes in the law specifically making that so, that would actually raise an equal protection question. So I'll go ahead and turn it over now to Ms. Defensor if she's able to join us on the press conference. Sarah?
Hi, good morning, everybody. Just to reiterate what the Congressman had mentioned, again, there have been no communications received in our office from the Employment Training Agency under the United States Department of Labor. We also have reached out to various colleagues of ours on the Hill, as well as our colleagues in the other territories who are also in the same position as Guam, and with the House Ways and Means and the Senate Finance Committee. When provisions were first being introduced and going back and forth with regard to this new bill, the only changes that were sure to us that were to be made that would make any impact was going to be the added weeks. And additionally, a big change that Congress wanted to include was simply the requirement that workers were to show proof of wages lost or wages earned versus wages lost, maybe through a W-2 or any other filing. So this is completely brand new information to us. So we don't have any information if the administrative if there was any administrative changes through the U.S. Department of Labor that has not been made public to the public or even to Congress, but it's not a function that Congress had done. There was no changes that were made to the law to the CARES Act that would reduce any eligibility for the pandemic unemployment assistance and any other unemployment programs that Congress created through the CARES Act.
Thank you, Sahara. So with that, one of the statements that were made by Director De La Sola, was that in order for this new interpretation to be worked out, it would require an amendment from the Congress, and that's just not accurate. If the law did not change to alter eligibility, then there would not need to be an amendment to alter an administrative decision. So we're being very cautious at this point in rushing to determine whether or not the eligibility has changed statutorily, because the law has not changed eligibility when we passed the omnibus bill. So with that, we either have a situation here where there is communication being made verbally that hasn't been made in writing, that is not formalized to all members of Congress. And so I would venture to say that the recent announcement is premature until we have formal guidance provided in writing. And with that being said, with the announcement being premature, I would caution us from overreacting in a panic fashion to determine that all of a sudden people are going to be cut off. We don't want that. That's not at all in the law. That shouldn't be happening. And if there is an interpretation issue, that needs to be clarified. We will be taking the necessary steps to get that clarity, not only through our office, but channeling it through other offices as well, particularly the Committee on Ways and Means. And we'll be providing updates immediately when those are available. Again, it is 12:30 in the morning, 12:45 in the morning out here, DC time. So we won't be able to render those responses until such time that we're able to actually make sure the communication has been received by our partners here in the House and are able to put the time in necessary to get the clarification back to us as well. So with that, I would like to go ahead and turn it over to our media partners. If I may advise our moderator, Eli, I got a message here from OIL that they are asking for permission to record this Zoom call for OIL and Don Karaskis also, please. So if you can authorize them to record. And at this time, I'll go ahead and turn it over to our media partners for any questions.
Hi, Congressman. It's Nestor LeConte, KOM. Hapaday. So I think one of the things that Dave De La Silva had mentioned, because he was on our air earlier this morning, was that one of the reasons that he wanted to get the message out was that if there were applicants who would fall under that category of reduced hours that he believes are now disqualified, because of the way the system is automated, they would receive payments, but then once it's vetted, they would have to repay that. And he said there would be a lot of people that fall under this category, obviously, and so that was one of his concerns. So at this point, if you're saying that the disqualification that he had raised is not in fact true, then are you saying that these people should go ahead and just reapply?
What we need to do is we need to clarify the guidance. I would advise the public to continue to make sure that they have whatever documentation they need necessary to reapply. I would urge them to document their circumstances between now and then and until the clarification is further provided. That way, if there is any filing that needs to be done to catch up and go backwards for whatever it is that they may have accrued that wasn't paid out. They would have all of the proper documentation in order to do that. I'm concerned that announcing that they're cut off might just cause them to not properly track what they may in fact be eligible for. And so at this time, I would say that if you are in that, if you are part of that category where your hours are reduced and you may be, and you're worried that you may be ineligible, continue to track as if everything was a status quo. That way, when the clarification comes through, and if in fact there is a remedy to this, you'll be able to be made whole as swiftly as possible. I do want to add that if this is an administrative decision, this administration is only going to be in office for the next 8 days. And so, again, continue to track, continue to be able to justify whatever it is that you may have been eligible for under a status quo interpretation, because when we have a new administration in, assuming that this is an administration miscommunication, we will work with the incoming Biden administration to make sure that this is remedied and clarified. So that's the basis for what I want to at least make everybody aware of. Don't just drop the ball. Let's make sure that everybody stays on point with being able to validate what they're accruing, so that if this is in fact an issue and we are able to have it remedied within the next 8 days, then we wouldn't be having people missing out on what it is that they would have been eligible for during that interim period.
So, Congressman, will you be addressing this with the current Labor Secretary, or will you wait for President-elect Biden's new Labor Secretary to take office? How soon do you plan to address it?
We're gonna do both. We're actually going to channel this through the Committee on Ways and Means. They're the ones that have oversight over this program. That way, we have the heavyweight chairman leaning on the Labor Department, saying, "Hey, the statute didn't change. Why are you changing the interpretation?" And hopefully, we can get it remedied immediately through that channel. But again, if that becomes an issue, we will be circling it back within the new administration to make sure that they're able to remedy this properly if we're not able to with the current one.
And just before I pass it on to the colleagues, so just to clarify, so you're saying there is no section in the omnibus bill that was just passed relative to PUA and disqualifying those who are currently working?
That is absolutely correct. The PUA eligibility language did not change. What changed was the timelines for when PUA would be extended. And again, as my legislative director reiterated, it just extended the weeks of eligibility from 39 to 50 some weeks. And it also extended the date of how long PUA would be active for all the way up until the first quarter of 2021. But the eligibility statutes for PUA did not change.
All right, thanks, Congressman. I'll defer to my colleagues.
Sure.
Heidi is now recognized.
Hi, Heidi, you might need to unmute.
Hi, good afternoon, Congressman.
Hi.
The basis for which the labor director made the announcement is this so-called Employment and Training Administration's Unemployment Insurance Program letter number 16-20, and it's dated January 8, 2021. And the line states that an individual who is working reduced hours while his or her place of employment continues to operate does not satisfy the conditions to self-certify under a certain item in that letter. So there is a written document that the director shared.
Right.
with
What I'm sharing is that the Congress, we have not received that. I know other members in my other colleagues of mine have not received that. We have not seen that information. So my team as well has just recently tried to track this when we got the news this evening, and we have not received that information. So this is all news to us, and so we're trying to clarify whether or not this interpretation has been vetted through the offices that have actually enacted the statute, the actual Congress that created the law. So we're going to be circling all of this tomorrow, and we'll be able to provide an update as to whether or not that recent announcement, we don't even have that letter. I haven't seen that. So we're going to be clarifying all of that over the next 24 hours, and we'll be working to figure out whether or not that interpretation is actually going to stick.
Thank you, Congressman. I'll be happy to share it with you.
Thank you.
Mr. Tony Lamarena is now recognized.
Oh, good afternoon, Congressman, or good morning for you. Yeah, I forwarded you the letter that Dave De La Sola sent me that was just discussed for your review, and it does state based on that information that any individual who has reduced hours would not qualify, and so maybe I see where you're coming from. I don't think that the intent by the Congress was to change the eligibility, but primarily to extend the program. But obviously, Dave is getting different directions, so maybe there needs to be some clarity there.
Yes, I very much agree. I would have hoped that rather than members of the media receiving this communication would have instead been channeled to our offices immediately, so we can be able to work together with the agency to provide clarity, or to at least channel it through and get answers on our end. Again, I see what you sent me here, Senator, and I agree with you that what you read is in fact correct based on what I'm looking at here. But again, that interpretation does not cite any specific statutory change.
Mm-hmm.
And so since there's no statutory language that changed, that needs to be explained by US DOL if they're in fact going to be holding that interpretation. And again, it raises the serious question of equal protection, because if the statute didn't change and people who had reduced hours were able to qualify before, then those who are on reduced hours now being denied would be a serious equal protection violation. And you could have lawsuits left and right from people saying, hey, the law didn't change, why are you cutting me off? And so this is something that I believe may be an interpretive issue on the administration side, if in fact this letter is going to be circulated to the Congress. And I can assure you that there's going to be serious concern amongst many legislators that this is being pushed out when the statute for eligibility did not change.
Yeah, and there needs to be clarity, because I can see Dave responding based upon what was sent to him from the Department of Labor. So hopefully your office can work with USDOL to clarify that, because I know there's a lot of people currently here that are panicking because of the information that was just released.
I very much agree with you. And for this interpretation to be pushed out, I mean, it's just so counterintuitive to what we're trying to do across the country. We're trying to get places to open. We're trying to keep businesses alive. Mm-hmm. And if they're doing that under constrained operating circumstances, for example, if a business, like a restaurant is not 100% occupancy or is only doing takeout, and they're reducing their hours of their employees in order to accommodate their limited operating circumstances, then they would be, by that interpretation, cutting off all of those workers from being able to receive additional support. And that's not the intent of the law. That's not at all what the statute is created to do. And so counterintuitively, what that interpretation would communicate to the country is that we would rather have you shut down entirely than try to stay open and generate economic activity. And that's just, again, entirely opposite to what the whole purpose of the of the all of this relief that we've pushed out, from PPP to PUA to everything else. We're trying to keep the country going. We're not trying to shut things down.
Right.
So I very much agree with your sentiments, and I believe that over the next 24 hours we're going to see greater clarity. And if this turns out to be something that this administration is going to hold on to in its final 8 days, I'm very confident that we're going to see a reversal of this with the new administration. So again, I want to urge the public, I want to urge any impacted workers, document your circumstances and give us time to be able to make sure this works out the right way. And we should be able to have you made whole when everything comes full circle.
Okay, well, one last question, Congressman. Nothing to do with PUA. We just got word from the U.S. government that they will be instituting a mandatory COVID testing from international destinations coming into the United States. Is Guam one of those international destinations? I know the airlines have considered us domestic because we have to pay for our own food when we go through Honolulu. So they're considered us domestic. So are we under that guidance? Do we, as U.S. citizens on Guam, have to get COVID testing prior to entry into the U.S.?
I just saw that news as well, Senator, and I also messaged my team at 12 o'clock this morning when I saw that news, telling them I want answers from CDC on this by tomorrow as to whether or not they are saying that this is going to apply to Guam, because for the purposes of public health and CDC, it should not. The intent of being concerned about international destinations has to do with the new strain of the virus being prevalent, particularly in Europe. And so, I cannot imagine us as a country cutting off travel from not only Guam, but every other U.S. territory that is in a similar circumstance as ours. So we will be getting clarification on that from CDC within the next 24 hours as well. And as soon as